song and it's so recognizable.
Very
Like,
familiar.
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
I saw you.
California.
Papa said, "But you can't hear
I don't know when you were,
Holiday.
I know,
That was pretty mellow. Really.
they're out, it's
like.
We know these names.
And we know a lot of these
You
people.
know this, like, I don't know,
But I don't know that everybody else knows about Verde.
So and that's kind of what I said
Like
during
safety
the is that I stopped saying that. I have to look at those groups again because I just
We're good, Rod. Okay.
saying like there's so many.
I think that we'll go ahead and get started, and we are streaming.
Okay, we're streaming, guys.
Yeah, because remember I said 40%.
We're off. We're just starting. And we're live now, so I don't know how many other people are online, but welcome to the people online. We're finally here. It's great to be here. It takes an enormous amount of planning and thought and work and a lot of other stuff, including, for those of us who were here last night, a great menu, to put one of these together. So thank you to our leadership. Thank you to the commissioners for being so deeply engaged running up to this, and Michelle, to you, and Donna for helping get us organized and here. It's been a long time that we've been waiting for this. Commissioners have been asking for a meeting like this. The agency's been looking for a meeting like this. And now it's our chance to talk about some of these things that we've been looking for. I want to remind people that in December, we talked about the focal areas and landing on 3 of those. I just want to mention them, and they are on the board so we can keep looking at them today. Climate change resiliency, landscape solutions, serving all Oregonians. And that ties us to today. Okay. It does tie us to today because today's our chance to talk about how we're going to do these things and what that means for our roles and how to achieve what we have claimed as our priorities. So this is a big deal day. I want to just go back for a second on climate change resiliency. When you hear from staff, they will add fish and wildlife adaptation. Commissioners talk about cold water often, cold water sources, and biodiversity crisis. The vision is that the natural systems in this state and the functions are intact and resilient enough to support habitat and populations, including us. So That requires what we have landed on, if you will, as our number 2, which is landscape scale solutions. The beaver modified habitat that we've talked about a lot is the clearest example of that. But there are others, and we've talked about some of those before. But what it means is that we have stepped up to accounting for the complexities of these natural systems, which isn't easy. It's not easy, but that's what we need to do. And I think that at least as I look at the work we've been doing and as I look at this year coming up, that's one of the things that makes our work count, is that we have stepped up to that, trying to figure out how to make all these layers and players work together well. In terms of serving all Oregonians, this has been on the commission's list since I started. And not because I did it, but because that's how this commission has been looking at things. It makes everyone in Oregon a constituent of ours. And what that means, one of the metrics that we've talked about is that everybody that encounters us should feel fair, that they've been treated with fairness, with respect, and that they have actually been heard. And since that's the standard that we have set for ourselves, one of the things that we look to as a proactive measure or as a proactive activity to get there is the disparity maps that we've looked at across the state. It also means that we're trying to reach more and more Oregonians so that we really are talking to everybody, not just some. So I would like to actually hand it to Becky if you'd like to add anything, but before I do that, deep appreciation for people for engaging in this and getting us to this day. So thank you. Becky, anything you could add?
I mean, all I would say is that I think that it was a significant amount of work by all the commissioners and everyone to come up with these priority areas, and then the department to take them. So that I think since I've been on the commission, we haven't had as much of a clear focus ever as this. And I think we need to be extremely intentional. I was just talking to Director Colbert about this morning. You know, I don't want us to be sleepy government. I want us to get things done. And I also just want to take 1 minute to say how proud I am to be part of this commission and to know these commissioners. And it's good, you guys. We're a good group. We don't agree on everything, but we are respectful to each other, and it really matters. We're setting an example for how to be commissioners. So anyway, that's all I'll say. Glad to be here, excited. There was a lot of work that went into this. Don't think that this just came together like, oh, you know, whatever. Let's put a few things up on the chart, right?
That's right.
And we can make people feel bad who didn't get here last night for the food we got.
Food
There is
and drawing. There was art projects that went on. Illustration. You would have been great at this. We needed, Commissioner King and I teamed up together, and we needed your, because even together we were failing, really.
And ironically, you scored the most points.
Yeah.
So
We were failing.
Oh, we won!
End of the day, that was the irony.
Yeah. Oh, actually, we won.
Yeah, if we have time at the end of the day, we'll play that again with everyone.
Love that game.
Maybe over lunch.
Do we need to do a quick round of introductions? Everybody knows everybody?
We have an introductory exercise,
Oh,
but I
okay,
don't know
then.
if you need to do it for your streaming.
We probably should for the
Just
streaming,
say
so,
just say who you are
yeah, so.
and where you drove from to get here. Okay.
I'll start. I'm Mary Wall from Langlois, and that's where I drove from. So,
Dr. Leslie King. I'm from Virginia. I did not drive from there. I drove from Portland yesterday.
You want to go all the way around or
Yeah.
just commissioners? Okay. Sarah Reif, Acting Deputy Director for Fish and Wildlife Programs.
Mark Labhart, and I drove from Sisters this morning.
wow.
Bob Spellbrink from Siletz, but I drove from the other side of Salem, which I think would have been easier to get here from Siletz.
Dallas Holdefreeze, we flew from Boise to get here.
Erin Donald, I will also say I'm with the Oregon Department of Justice, not the Department of Fish and Wildlife, but that is my lovely client, and I live in Portland.
And I'm Becky Hatfield Hyde, and I am from Brothers and sometimes Klamath.
And I'm Debbie Colbert, and I work out of our headquarters Salem office. And I love that our DOJ counsel called us her lovely client.
It's really true.
What do you want?
We love our $1 million babies.
Morning, everybody. I'm Davia Palmieri, and I work in the director's office, and I live in West Salem, right here. So, the shortest drive.
And I'm Michelle Tate. I work for the director's office, and I live here in Salem, actually just a few minutes away from our headquarters office.
And is there anything you need to tell either us, or I'll go over there in just 1 second, anything you need to tell us or people online about the system?
And so I feel like I say this every time, we do ask for folks to give us some grace if we are reliant on the connectivity of the facility. We feel like we've got a nice, strong connection, but as most folks know, that doesn't always last all day. But we are going to do our best to get this streamed out to the public and ask for your patience if we have any issues.
Thank you. And could we have the two people in the back? Bob, you too.
Bob Swingle with the Information and Education Division.
Thank you.
And I'm David Mooney with the Information Systems Division.
Thank you. Oh, Donna?
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Donna Silverberg. I am with DS Consulting, not BS Consulting. People have asked me many times, but I'd say you can decide that at the end of the day. I'm here to help facilitate today. It's been a pleasure meeting you all. Big thanks to Michelle for all the help that you have given getting us here and feeding us and all of those things. So, and to all of you for the time that you put into having conversations with me. So hopefully today's agenda is gonna get it for you.
We think it
With
will.
your help.
Yay. Annika?
Annika Marriott, so I am also with the Oregon Department of Justice, Erin's colleague, and I share her opinion that you love the time. But I do all the fish division work, so houses. I focus on wildlife and most of the tribal work.
And I'm Kathleen Khalil. I drove here from Commissioner. I drove here from Portland. It was very wet.
Yes.
I forgot to say I drove here from Hood River yesterday.
Parkdale, not the river.
Hood River County.
Hey.
All right.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Donna.
So with that, we're gonna do a little bit more. So I think that the focus here on how is really what we're talking about today. Is how do you all wanna now take the momentous effort it took to get to your focal areas, and how do you wanna be with each other? How do you wanna be with your staff? How do you wanna get these things done as a commission charged with what you're charged with? And so what we were hoping to do today is set this up in a way so that you all can have dialogue with each other, rather than your traditional commission meeting where you are speaking, and I say something, and then someone else says something, and they may or may not be connected. We're hoping to have a connected conversation today. So to start that off, what I'd like to ask you to do is find someone in the room that you don't know very well. Take your agenda with you if you need to, but I want you to have a conversation with them for 7 minutes, and I will time it. So I want you to have a 7-minute conversation. I want you to find out who they are, where do they call home, and what is unique that we wouldn't find on their resume and that they won't mind that you share with the rest of the group and the public, right? So it is streaming today. So none of the silly things, okay? So find someone you don't know very well. There should be plenty of people in the room.
Anybody in the whole room.
Or just Sean. Let's get Sean introduced and then we'll do this. Sean, welcome.
Morning.
Morning, Joe.
You know how I like to make an entrance.
If you can just say your name and where you just drove from.
Sean Clements, Corvallis.
Corvallis, all right. Welcome, Sean. We're now about to move into
And now, again, is it just commissioners? Who, is this all the whole?
No, it's the whole group. Find somebody in the room that you don't know very well, and you're gonna introduce each other. So get ready for that, right? 7 minutes for both of you to find out enough information to introduce each other to the rest of the group, okay? Off you go. Timers going now.
I'll bring my chair over.
But let's I wanna get to know you.
I'll go sit in.
Can't be Leslie.
Of all of your
So,
Oh, come on, I can still shock you.
Well, I'm sure, but you're the person I know that. I was just checking to see what.
you want me to go first? Who's gonna have you go?
Right. Everybody, we're all doing
You may, I'm done for this exercise.
I can't wait to find out stuff that you my flight is on the 21st. My company comes.
Okay.
There could be more than one.
You don't have to drive.
I'm not gonna drive my car.
Yeah, I did.
I grew up in Kentucky.
I'm keeping my car here, but I can hold my lawn.
So say something
Yeah,
Want to be in a trio?
oh, sure.
people don't know about.
That's why
I was gonna say, that was, yeah, it's like this.
Then went to the dark.
We gotta play
Ran for public office. Commissioner for 12 years.
I wanna hear your story. So, okay, Rhode Island.
I'm gonna tell you something about yourself.
it's incredible.
Mainly grandchildren.
Okay.
Tell us about our kids. We've done this.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like it.
They're being very flexible.
Explain who you are, where you're from.
It was hard.
And then it was something that we would not learn from you from your past. Yeah, like something that, you know what I mean, but that you're okay to share.
I just like, I'm feeling sad. It's my last.
Yeah.
West Virginia, no insurance. Okay, here's something I wanted to know. I was recruited by Boys Scout. Sorry, I was, no, I shouldn't say recruited, I was, I call that when I look at it. Scout.
Give us a little note back.
Throw the ball.
We got all the ways to
You always have it.
What are these arguments called?
So that's accessible for me.
One generation down.
Okay, so.
My sister's been trying to see if we can get it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. My dad's older brother, his older sister.
Which island?
Love it. I have a friend who has an Italian. He's like, it's the easiest one to get. Yeah, like, yeah, but maybe not for losers.
Yeah, that's what happened with my mom.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Fair enough, my parents are like,
Their husband, his family.
have a whole conversation about.
So you're passionate.
One thing, I know, because I actually studied geography for college share.
Where to
Virginia, but
It's just a critical drive.
So I'm going east to west, I'm going north to south. My sister's twins.
Like with a.
Usually not organized, but you can't.
Yeah. When was the last time you did this? Oh, I'm worried.
I always thought that we had to get
I went to 3 places. I went to Alaska.
anyway.
So if you haven't switched,
I think we're.
if you haven't switched yet, time to switch.
Wrote to 3 places, Alaska.
We still have our neighbors have been around it everywhere.
Oh, okay.
We sell that stuff. And then you need that as a resume.
High school, college, and then I told her you're coming though.
I don't know. I mean,
now
talk about my
I
heart.
got to rotate played for why I can never shower or take
There's a very
Yeah, that's it's yeah, there's like there I didn't think of that segment.
Okay.
and I still volunteer for high school.
You got a degree in.
Which is really fun.
Okay, Michelle. Okay. Yeah, because we are no longer
I was bio major, minor or double, because I was like, I like that, and I want to be able to read. Sitting on the desk.
I call
Okay, awesome. Little note that. Okay, okay. Oh, okay, I've heard of it, yeah, that was amazing.
Is it fun? You wanna go to bed?
Great trip.
Feels warm on our my dream trip that I actually did. Oh, I was in for a wedding many months from there. So that's so that we can, that's what I think about. Yeah. Which I was like, man, I really hope I make it to the wedding. You know where I am.
A month.
Yeah. It was a while and I was in a Viking and we're really not back. We're not on your resume.
Oh, my artist shoot.
Oh, yeah, artist shoot. Yeah, that's a good one.
Now, those ladies are favorite here.
I really love
Do you still?
I'll tell you what.
This is New Zealand.
Are you ready? So.
Okay.
Masters in boring.
Come on back.
Resources. Okay, yeah, I might need a blanket, like, wrap up like a picture. There are blankets you might need. No, I want one, yes, thank you. I want a blanket.
Me too.
My husband always jokes that he freezing that he wants to
Yeah,
come
because I think because you're sitting near the
follow
the stress sliding, whatever,
That's hilarious.
sliding contraption with no insulation.
He knows that. He's not gonna.
So
These blankets are available.
That's-
Anybody
Oh,
wants a blanket, they're in that box.
We haven't even taken the tags off.
I was like, my God, it's on a hanger, I'm like, wow.
This is like Cabela's after Christmas sale. Remember you guys were so frozen at the Dells? That Michelle was like, I wanna start traveling with.
Good, okay.
Oh, that's nice.
When I have Debbie sitting next to me, I'm shivering, so she's going, is there anything that can help us?
Who doesn't in this group?
All right, so I usually bring props to these kinds of meetings. I usually have a magic wand and a large whip.
Oh,
But I
wow.
realized halfway down from Hood River yesterday that I'd left my props at home. So, those are just, in case we need to do some magic, I have the wand. And in case you don't listen to me when I say we gotta get moving to stay on this agenda, I can crack my whip. So I'm cracking my whip for you now, and now let's find out a little bit. So you have to, yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah, so many of you have found the toys there. They're just there for you to, there's no, I'm not gonna lead you through what to do with those things. Those are there for you to do whatever you want with, right? Use them as fidgets, and entertain yourself. Okay, they're yours to play with today. So if you find your mind, I'm gonna give you a couple times, if you find your mind wandering and having a hard time staying focused in the room, grab your fidgets. If you're bored, grab your fidgets. If you just wanna do something with your hands, grab your fidgets, right? So none of us are gonna make an assumption about what it is leading you to your fidgets, but enjoy it, okay? With that, who would like to introduce our partner? Who would like to go first?
I can go first, get things started.
Michelle, great.
We actually did a trio, so we are taking turns, but I'm gonna introduce Erin. Erin Donald, as she announced earlier, works for DOJ, supporting the Wildlife Division. Erin is a fourth generation Portlandian. Her family originates in Norway, and the little known fact that she shared was that in high school and college, that she was a javelin thrower.
Wow.
And that was a great influence for them until she tore a rotator cuff. So many years have passed, but is still able to use that injury to not have to clean the shower.
Impressive.
Making lemonade. Nice. I hate cleaning the shower.
I know, yeah, just get a little twangy in your arm.
Erin, who are you introducing now?
I am introducing Leslie King.
Okay.
And she is the daughter of a Vietnam veteran who was a Green Beret, and that's her father who had an affection for Harley Davidsons, which he passed on to his daughter. And she has ridden here's our little known fact. And she comes from Virginia. Did I say that? She has ridden her Harley Davidson across the country, and when I was curious and tried to drill in on that, I learned that it is many times both east to west and west to east and north to south.
Great.
There was
Thank
one
you.
time Dr. Leslie
Thank you
rolled
very
up to
much.
my house in New Haven where my very sweet, demure parents were in her Harley Davidson. With a bottle of Maker's
I was gonna
Mark.
say with whiskey.
All right, Leslie, who are you introducing?
Our lovely Michelle, who just left.
Looking at the temperature, making sure I'm not freezing.
So our lovely administrator who keeps us going and gets us our lovely food and all these venues and is always so pleasant, even when we're complaining about cold showers. God bless Michelle. So I've learned, Michelle is from Southern Oregon, Grants Pass specifically, the daughter of a logger. Spent lots of time stomping around in the woods. One of the times she almost stomped on a rattlesnake. And she told me that was the fastest she's ever run in her life. And so we know that at least Northern European, I'm not sure if it was Norway or whatnot, but and I didn't get the details of when folks came, but multi-generation in Oregon. But the little known fact is, getting back to her roots, at least European roots, is her dream vacation is a European river cruise.
Nice.
Where she conjures her inner Viking by sailing from Amsterdam to Prague.
Cool. Yay. Nice. Nice. Awesome. Okay.
Great data.
Thank you. Good, excellent modeling, people. Who wants to go next? Thank you for that. Great, Mary.
And I'm going to introduce Bob Spellbrink. Bob he said he was from Salem and Siletz and grew up in Salem, East Salem. Now is in the house that his grandfather built, which he has also been building and repairing, and may someday, the dream would be, the old part finally goes and another half onto the new, so a lot of work still to go. Bob is a fisherman and has fished both as a guide and as a commercial for a long time. And the unique piece, I think, and this one rings so true, is that Bob spent his life on the ocean. And his kids went a different direction, partly because Bob said, think about this life and what it means about being gone all the time and that sort of thing. And the other piece I would mention is that we both went to Oregon State and spent years at Oregon State, so.
Okay, I'll introduce Mary Wall. Interesting too, because we ran out of time. I mean, we really didn't get very far, I feel like. So, I mean, it shows that it's good to maybe sit down and do this and take a little more time than what we actually have. But kind of like myself, she started in Langlois, grew up in Langlois, and ended up back there, you know. So in between, and something unique, I don't know how many people here have graduated from Harvard, or was it?
Graduate work, yeah, not
Graduate work in Harvard, yeah, anyway, I thought that was probably a little bit unique, that probably not too many of us here have been to Harvard.
Didn't know that.
They wouldn't have let me in the door. But before then, she went to OSU and also studied in Italy. And that's another unique thing also too. She's always been interested, involved in ranching / conservation. And, you know, I think we all know those two go together really. One helps with the other. She taught 8th grade in Boring. She actually taught school too. I thought that was interesting. Certainly didn't know that either. And she's, you know, been involved in conservation work her entire life.
Great, nice, good, thank you both. And what a great point that, you know, even 7 minutes, which is probably 10 times the amount of time you spend when you come to meetings, and it's still not enough time. So thank you for making that point so soon, Bob. All right, who's next? Becky.
I'll go. I had David Money, and he is information system specialist for the department. Always at our meetings, always quiet, and with Bob quietly over there doing things, right? But what are they doing? Like they're actually keeping a lot of things going, right? Quietly. So he's married and has 3 kids, 18, 16, and 14. Lives in Salem and has this beautiful philosophy on life. Is kind of believes in trying to have sort of a low stress life and doesn't let a lot of things just bother him. And that's based on sort of a Taoist principle of that tragedy is part of life. But you kind of need to embrace it. It's not that you like tragedy, but you know, it's part of the gig. He also does a lot of crafting and things, and woodworking. And woodworking, for example, making like nightlights, scroll work nightlights and things. Cool, right? So cool. He is adopted, and both of his brothers are adopted, or both of his siblings. I don't know if they were brothers.
All different families.
Anyway, so that's interesting. And he worked for many years at the School for the Blind and Deaf teaching, which I think, and I'm adding this, I'm being tongue in cheek, is a lot easier job than working with teaching biologists, commissioners, and others how to send an email.
Really. Very cool.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And I had Becky as my partner, and and I would agree that it was like, it wasn't enough time. I mean, I could have spent like 15, 20 minutes talking. She lives in Eastern Oregon, way Eastern Oregon, outside of Brothers. She is married with 5 kids, from the 20s to the teens, so she has a wide range going as well. Played high school basketball.
Nice.
Scored a point. You know, so she does have a record, so there's at least that.
In all the years of high school basketball.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good defense.
For defense player.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that just kind of shows that even though she may not have been like the star player in the basketball team, she works well within the team. And she has good memories of being in the team, which is kind of reflective of this as well, is that, you know, she doesn't have to be the star, but she can still participate in any way she can. I kind of got that from her. It was very enjoyable.
You're so
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I was mostly.
All right, who wants to go next?
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to go next because I'm sensing we should have a pickup game at lunch. The little known fact is that Mark Hare used to play basketball in high school as
So
well.
did I.
So did I.
Hey. So we'll break
Almost
up.
got a team.
Oh, we do almost have a
Well, the
team.
problem is though, that now who's got bum knees is the problem.
Yeah, we'll break out the knee braces. Yes, I think most of you are aware that Mark has a long history in forestry with ODF, also as a county commissioner in Tillamook. What you might not know is he grew up in John Day, or at least I didn't know that. So small town, played baseball and basketball there at high school, and then went on to Western University and OSU. So I think there's about 5 people here with connections to the Beavers by my count. Great. And even more interesting was that Mark actually got scouted by the Pittsburgh Pirates for baseball.
Wow.
So watch out for his arm. He apparently had a pretty mean fastball. The problem was that he couldn't hit a target. So yeah, that's where that dream ended. But obviously went on to a long, productive career, and now with us here. So yeah, that's Mark.
Great, thank you, Sean. Well, probably a lot of you know Sean was born in New Zealand, on the North Island of New Plymouth. He started his, I'm sorry, DOJ folks, but he started his career in law, but he didn't really enjoy it, so.
Quite dry.
Because he liked fishing and biology, and so that's what he moved into, got his degree and master's in New Zealand. He sent letters to Alaska, Oregon, and Montana. Alaska told him not to come. It's too cold. You won't like it here. But Oregon, OSU recruited him and said, we would like to have you come here. And they encouraged him to come. And that's where Sean got his PhD. He was about 22 years old when he came here. So he's pretty young. He met his wife at an international students orientation, and the initial conversation was she was complaining about the health insurance that international students had to purchase at $400 a month, and from there on, they got married, you know? So here's what we don't know about Sean, and maybe some of you do. Sean likes to sing karaoke. And he's known for his singing in bars and corrals.
You've missed so many opportunities.
Now, here's the best part.
Yeah.
Somebody actually videoed him, and it was displayed at an ODF&W staff meeting, as I understand. I don't know how far back.
And that was the end of that.
Yeah, my understanding is you haven't done it since then.
No.
Too many songs.
I said, are you any good? And he kind of hesitated. That's Sean.
Oh my God, that's
Can we have some lunchtime?
If only I brought my karaoke machine.
Because of karaoke. Anything's a karaoke machine.
Sean, I have to bring you, I have an extra Taranaki Hardcore t-shirt.
Oh, nice.
And so for those of you that don't know, New Plymouth and the west side of the North Island has all the oil rigs and is very hardcore. And there's like literally patches that say Taranaki Hardcore, which is the name of the big mountain, which is where Sean is from. So.
Hardcore karaoke.
Hardcore. Taranaki Hardcore.
A little bit of
Do you have a go-to song?
All right. Okay, who's next? Kathy Yoon.
I'll go. Okay, so Davia and I had a great conversation, and agreed we probably know so many of the same people, and can't wait to friend you on Instagram and find out. But we are both. She is a daughter of an immigrant, so first generation Americans, first generation born in America. Her father is from Italy, but then we got down a rabbit hole of she can't have Italian citizenship because what does it mean to be an American, and wanting to be an American and giving up citizenship in your motherland, fatherland, whatever. So we had went down a very deep rabbit hole very quickly and then back right out because there's not enough time to talk about that. She calls home Long Island, specifically the Belmont area of Long Island, famous for the Belmont Stakes. And so that was always like a milestone moment in the year for her and her family. And she She lived out there and came out here. Majored in art history and, well, majored in biology but minored in art history. And so that was the interesting fact, is that, like, you know, you got the right brain and the left brain, and sometimes you need to follow something that may not be your job and career, but it is lovely to have that background. She loves the Impressionists, Degas, Monet, and was lucky enough to grow up near the MoMA and the Met and all those beautiful museums to be able to see those pieces in person. Did I miss anything?
Wow.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
So I'm introducing Kathy Yoon, and she is a person of many identities, one being first-generation immigrant, born in Portland, and she calls home her family's Northwest Portland farm, where they grow Christmas trees on 20 acres. And she's also a professional artist as a side business, in addition to her conservation career. And her little known fact is that she is a bronze medal in the Constitution team at high school.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. Right. She still volunteers as a judge for the high school Constitution team. So it's something important there.
Which school?
Lincoln.
Yeah, of course. Okay, good.
Yeah, they always go.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great. What a team, right? Okay, please.
I'll go next. I had Director Colbert.
Or Colbert. Colbert.
If you're feeling very, she told me one time that I could refer to it, she doesn't mind, whichever one, Director Colbert or Director Colbert.
I tell folks I'm the youngest of 5, I'll answer to anything.
So, you know, whatever I'm feeling at the moment, I will refer to her accordingly. But the little known fact, the home, a little known fact I'll get to, but her home, you know, she's in that part where it's like South Carolina is probably what she would say was where she grew up and it's her home. But now, you know, this is really her home, so it's a struggle, but definitely when I asked the question of where you were going to retire, where you might split. So that's kind of her goal, is to split, eventually getting to South Carolina.
Okay.
But she is one of 5, but she's the only one that went west. So I think we can refer to her as the pioneer in her family. But the little known fact is that she loves scuba diving in warm water now. That's the only criteria that's changed since her original love of scuba diving.
Nice.
So,
Oceanographer, right?
yeah.
Nice.
I love this exercise, Donna, because I feel like we work together pretty regularly, and I learned so much about Annika that I didn't know. So this is a great exercise. So I can't read my own writing. Wow. Okay. So Annika considers Newport, Rhode Island as home. That's where she grew up. And in fact, this last year has been kind of poignant in terms of the family selling their family home. So kind of, you know, that big tie to home. So big transition time for her and her brother right now. So here is the amazing thing. So Annika is an athlete, and most of her life has been kind of around her athletic interest, and she is actually in the Hall of Fame at Stanford National Championship sailing team. She is a accomplished sailor.
Nice.
So who knew that about? I know.
That's awesome.
Rhode Island, I guess it makes sense. Yeah. Newport.
Exactly.
Nice.
America's Cup.
All right.
Super cool.
I think.
Does that leave us?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah Reef, we had a lovely conversation. Sarah grew up in Arizona, started in urban area, Phoenix. We didn't really talk about how she transitioned into wildlife, but I assume it was a lifelong interest. And worked in Arizona Wildlife Division for a while, then came back up to Oregon. We didn't really get into interesting facts because
We started talking
about interesting topics.
So we're like, we have so many things we need to talk about.
That 7 minutes went really fast. I felt like we had just
scratched the surface of, we started talking about energy development and her work in the ODFW and with energy earlier on, and I talked about that with my work and what we're doing and all this interesting stuff. And so I'm sure she's chock full of interesting facts, but she's also chock full of interesting conversation.
Nice. I'll share one, and maybe then you can do me the favor and share an interesting fact about you.
Okay,
'cause
great.
We didn't get to that part.
Yeah, we didn't.
I love to bake. I make sourdough bread like every week or every 2 weeks, so it's like my love language and my release of stress is to bake. Do you have like a historic starter? Like,
Yeah, you have a starter.
I have one that I got from a woman in San Francisco named Patricia. So most people name their starters, and so my starter is Patricia.
See, now there's a little known fact.
Just a little known fact.
So Coconino, bear down, or you?
I went to University of Arizona. Yep,
I've seen your hat.
for my undergrad. I went to University of Wyoming for my master's. So yeah, similarly, what I do know, there's a little theme here around the table of people saying that they grew up in a small town and then they left and maybe went to school and had a professional life and then they came back. Same for Dallas. So home place is Baker County, and she's done, she's got degrees from OSU, worked in Portland for a while, but then came back to Baker County, met her husband there, lives there. I do know from last night's conversations that she has 2 little ones. She's got a baby girl named Clementine that's under 1 year old. So we appreciate you being here because it's hard to be away from the littles. And then also an almost 4-year-old son.
Yes.
And his name is
Roby.
Roby. Such good names. So we went immediately into like talking shop about all these things that we need to catch up on. So unfortunately, we didn't follow the directions. I don't know if that tells you anything about us, but
Yeah, there's not always 2.
yeah.
The best for last. Yeah. I mean, part of it is I think it's really hard to come up with interesting facts. Maybe one thing is, I grew up in a rural area. We didn't have we didn't have TV really, but we had a lot of DVDs and taped VHSs that I grew up on. So when I talk about the movies that I grew up with to my husband and my friends, it's a lot of World War II, Bridge Over the River Kwai, Great Escape, and so I have a hard time oftentimes really relating to people my own age on things that we grew up with.
That's hilarious.
Great.
We
Okay.
have not,
This is Bob.
oh, you had Bob, oh, good.
I had Bob briefly. That sounds weird. Bob has been with ODFW for 16 years. He is one of the web developers for ODFW, and was really delighted after COVID when things went to streaming. And someone said, "Would you like to try that?" And he said, "Yeah." And one of the things that probably isn't on his resume, but might be kind of, what won't be is the thing he was very enthusiastic about is that he gets to go off and actually film some of the projects and stream the projects live. And he lit up when he talked about that. So that's Bob. I don't have any, you want to share something, more personal than that?
I'm probably one of the only people at the agency with a bachelor's degree in Bachelor's of Science in Art. So, and I
BS in
BS in
art.
art. Yeah. I started out in electrical engineering. Calculus and I did not get along, so I liked the creative side of engineering. So I just switched to just focusing more on that side of things. So. And learned photography when it was all darkroom stuff. So it's been fun to see the transition. So yeah, Donna and I spoke just very briefly towards the end. So I don't know a whole lot, but what I can say is that she lives in Hood River County, and does mediation work for agencies, both federal and state, as well as tribal. And that's about all the details I know.
I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, you haven't talked to someone, so we did a quick 20 second thing.
I do have to say that just as much as I've been around the agency, I'd have to say that mediation is probably one of the more important things that can be done with groups like this, like just the function of government. We're never going to make everyone happy, so I think mediation is a real key role in that.
But she wasn't always a consultant. You were in the governor's office for a number of years.
I was back in the day, it's true. That is on my resume. But I was in Governor Kitzhaber for Kitzhaber 1. I was in his natural resource office as his special assistant for dispute resolution on natural resource issues.
And the Oregon Plan for Watersheds, you helped
And
get
was
that
part
going?
of the Oregon Plan for Salmon and Watersheds. Yeah, that team that did that with Ken Beerley and Jim Martin and some of those folks that some of you might know. And some of you might not have been born when we were doing that.
I can speak to Bob's passion for filming because he filmed me and Becky digging clams in the rain.
Nice.
Like right after COVID. That was like one of the first times we'd even met Bob. And I still have that on my phone, that video of you filming Becky and I out there giving an interview and digging clams in the rain.
Yeah. The one thing that's not probably on my resume, I was trying to decide what isn't on there, because I probably now have my art on there, because I'm an owner of an art gallery in Hood River. But the thing that's not on there is that I'm an equestrian and had been selected to be on the Junior Olympic team when I was 14, and was notified of that selection a week after I'd fallen and broken my back in competitions. So I didn't get to do that. But I did play basketball, even though I was the shortest person on the team. And like Becky, I didn't make points, but I sure got them to the tall girls who did. So I'm ready to go out and play.
Yeah, we have a team.
Yeah.
I think
We are a team.
we've reached quorum on the basketball
Yeah,
team.
exactly, we can do it. And Sean can sing.
You can be our cheerleader. Can you do it in New Zealand Maori? That's what I want. Give us a haka there, Sean.
So, we're gonna move along. I hate when we have to just like keep moving and we can't just stop and talk a little bit, but we're gonna keep moving, right, Mary? Yep. Because Mary told me, better keep moving. Show me in looks only. So, I just wanted to give an opportunity to reflect on, for you all to reflect on the Thomas Kilman management of differences. I want to share with you briefly about what it is and when it's good and when each of these styles is useful. I shouldn't say good and bad. When it's useful, and when you might want to choose a different one, right? So the point of this really is to start a conversation so that you can be strategic as an individual and as a team in the decisions you make of how you enter into some of the things that come up. And I was sharing with someone that maybe it was Leslie. Leslie and I were talking about how, you know, my experience in the years in natural resources in Oregon is that ODF and ODFW are the two that have the biggest, and you know, from state government, the Oregon Health Authority folks, those are the three big agencies in the state that have the most flashy things that end up on the newspaper, right? We don't see much more from other agencies in the newspaper, except for school board these days, school boards and school stuff. But you've got a lot. And so the reason I thought focusing a little bit on how do you manage those differences so that you can turn to Erin and to Annika for advice and not counsel of what you're gonna do in trial, right? We were speaking about that briefly. So focusing a little bit on what individually, where you're coming from on this and where the team is coming from can make it easier for you to make some choices about who you put in for this particular issue, right? And I think that when I worked with Debbie and her leadership team, they found this a useful exercise to figure some of that out. So briefly, let's just imagine that you and I are having a conflict, okay? You and I are having a conflict, okay? So I'm gonna put me up here and you here. And the way Thomas Kilman set this up, they did a couple of things. They said, all right, there are 5 different styles that tend to come up. You all met them, right? So we have avoid, we have accommodate, we have compromise, somewhere here in the middle, right? We have collaborate, where we're working together, and we have compete. So I have to decide, in whatever it is that we're thinking about, how assertive do I want to be in pushing my point? Okay, so this goes up this way. Or how cooperativeness, how much cooperativeness do I want to use in order to accommodate you? Right, and there are different ways. Can everybody see this okay? Okay. And so both of us need to make these decisions. So if, as we're talking about something, I realize that this is something you care deeply about, but I don't really care that much about, right? I don't care that much. Then if I care about our relationship, there is no reason for me not to move more towards accommodating you. Okay? If I want to enhance the possibility of future cooperativeness, then accommodating you in this moment is a good thing for me to do. This is a strategic move. It can be strategic, it can be heartfelt. I just want to do this for you, Annika. I want to have, this is important, go for it. Now, if I see that Annika cares deeply about this, but so do I, then I've got some choices of what I want to do. She's embedded and I'm embedded for a variety of reasons. I need to decide, is this a value that is so important to me that I need to really assert my goals and be very competitive and hope that somewhere between here and there, she and I might be able to come to a place where I'm going to hope, especially if it's values, principles that are deeply held, that I'm going to win as much as possible. And she may be thinking the same thing. But she may say, oh, I can see that that's really important to you, and I can see you're going to fight me. I'm not going to fight, right? I'm not going to fight. So you go ahead and take that. So in the sense that reverses. So she's now accommodating me in that situation. If Annika and I are talking, then, and we realize neither of us care very much about this, then why continue having a conversation about it? So we can just avoid this particular topic because we don't really care about it. So one time to avoid is when we don't care. The other times to avoid is I care about this deeply and I'm getting angry about it, right? And so is she. We want to stop the conversation and come back at a different time. Right? The good time to avoid is when people are getting upset enough, when it gets so emotional, that having that conversation right now will do more harm to the relationship than is worth doing right now. So let's just pause, take a break, step away from the conversation, see if we can come back when our heads are a little bit, because we're going to avoid in the moment. So harm might come in this moment, or we don't have the resources, mental, physical, financial, to really engage in the conversation right now. So that's a good time. So you may, as a group, right, I'm going to expand this from Annika and I to say, as a group, you may say, we really need to talk about this. And you may want to dive in and talk about it, but someone in the group may say, hang on, time out. We don't have the facts yet. We don't have enough information as a group. So let's just table this. Unfortunately, they use the term avoid, which I think is rough for this particular one. And often when I put people into groups to talk about these things, I did this with the leadership team. I think I need to be mindful of time here today, and we can have some conversation. But when I put them into teams and say, what are the values that your highest score has? What value does it add to a group? Where does this style challenge you? If this is your favorite style, where do you find challenge? Where might you need some help? And if you could rename it, what would you rename it to? And this group always renames this to the processing group, to the pausing group, to the thoughtful group. So before I put the scores up, I want you all to think about that, right? Is that avoiding sometimes is absolutely the right thing to do. And we are pushed in government, has been my experience, to either accommodate, to compromise, or to collaborate. And sometimes, we're not usually pushed to compete, although we do, but that's not something we talk about, right? So when Thomas Kilmann first did this, they started by calling compete assert, right? This is assertiveness, cooperativeness. They call this assert, and they came to realize that the people who are very high, if you scored really high on compete, this can be very hard on relationships. Because if every time I work with Annika, I am trying to win every single time, Annika is not gonna find that very fun over time, right? There's gonna be like, F you. Stop it, right? Let's find a different, I'm gonna go play with someone else, really, right? And so they changed it to this compete because people felt that people were competing. They're trying to win at all costs, and that's all that mattered. So they changed the name to compete. So I think that's really interesting to think about is, am I being so assertive if I do test high on this one as a preferred style? Am I being so assertive that I am turning people away from me and I'm losing the capacity to move this way on this grid to be able to have relationship and cooperate with others, okay? All right, so there's still two more here, real quickly. If Annika and I are talking and we realize both of us care about it and we don't have a lot of time, but we need to get this settled, then we are going to just say, all right, okay, I see this is important to you. Let's just go somewhere halfway between, and we are gonna compromise and solve this thing right now, okay? So time is an issue here, right? This one's kind of harm or need more info. And this one is, we'll come back to that in a minute, but time is really important here. So if we're, like when Mark was working with ODF doing fire incident command work, that is not a really great time to say, so what do you all think we ought to do? The place is burning down, let's just work collaboratively together and figure out let's get some ideas here. No, this is when you jump into the ABC command and control and say, this is what we need to do, okay? It is very effective at solving the problem, and people fall right in line. I mean, if that weren't happening down in LA, it'd be worse than it is, right? So compromise is a very good thing, and if it's not burning down, if you have the time and the resources, then spending a little more time asking some questions of, so Annika, help me understand what's important to you. What is it that you need from this? Rather than just bargaining here on, I want this, I want this. Now we're gonna go a little bit deeper and try and find out what else is important to you? What are the interests that you have? What are the needs that you have that you're asking for this particular thing? And then Annika's gonna tell me those things, and then she's gonna say, well, tell me about yours. And somewhere we'll be able to get to this collaborative solution. This takes time, it takes resources, it takes being, and I don't just mean financial resources, but if you think about some of the salmon plant, that took years and lots of staff, lots of people all over the state coming up with that. If you don't have the time and the fortitude to do that, don't collaborate, right? So, I mean, as a mediator, everybody thinks I'm gonna come in and say, do the collaborative approach every time. No, don't. Figure out what is the best strategy for the particular issue that you have going on, and then approach it that way. Be intentional about your collaboration. Don't put all your eggs in the collaboration bottle if people don't have the attitude to come to a table being collaborative. Because this requires us to take the time to listen to each other, to not raise our voices in a way that it turns the conversation back this way or back that way, right? So if we can just go to here even, you may be increasing what you can get that little bit much more if you just can do a little bit more collaboration, but not the whole thing all the time. All right, so with that, any questions, any observations?
I think it's interesting how it layers onto some social psychology, especially with the word use of assertiveness is seemed to be a good trait or
right?
a masculine trait, right, in a lot of ways. And to say that you're assertive is a positive quality, but to say that you're competitive may not always be a positive quality.
Or to say that you're aggressive.
Totally.
Aggressively
Yes.
assertive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are different ways that you can add to this.
I'm thinking about these like lessons we used to have in school with like different caricatures, like assertive Sam, aggressive Bertha, passive Mortimer, and they were like teaching like young children like how to act in conflict situations.
Interesting. See, next gen.
And obviously I remember
I will
it.
admit, you know, if anybody looked at, well, you haven't looked at it yet because I have it as a handout. This test has been around for a long time. I like to use it because I've been hanging around huge scientists long enough to know that if you don't have the data to stand up to the test is no good. This one's been around since either the late 60s, early 70s. And so it has millions of hits on this thing. You know, they've got it all run out now. So we know that it is useful. It is not your personality, okay? Whatever you were thinking about when you took this test, a couple of you have had different experiences where you did it 2 different times and it came out differently. One of you shared with me that it came out almost exactly the same when thinking of 2 different settings. So whatever you were thinking about, what I think is it's a really great way to reflect on where do I lean? And the test is showing you the high one is your preferred style, your natural style. The second highest one is your default under conditions of stress. And you all are under stress often when you've got an angry crowd talking to you about a decision that you just made. So that's a time to remind yourself, this is when I default to, when I might, okay, I'm not gonna say do, might default to this. What do I need to be thinking about in this situation, right? So I find it to be really useful in terms of providing information to kind of self-inquiry. And also, now you have a shared language of how do we wanna, when you meet later in executive session with your attorneys, and maybe they're gonna share something with you about something, then you have a choice. You have language now to have a conversation with them of it. So if we were gonna go competitive on this, if we were gonna be assertive about what was important to ODFW, how might we do that? If we wanted to be collaborative, what might we do? And you all might have experience with that as well. So Leslie and then Becky.
To follow on Kathleen's point, because she's the social scientist and I do a lot of it as a doctor, and I do a lot of it in environmental justice. Some of I guess it's the terms and like
Yes,
I
the terms are
understand
tough.
what you're saying, that there's a lot of science behind it. There's also a shit ton of bias behind it.
Yes.
Because when you look at particularly like assertive and aggressive and angry and like, always the caricatures that we learned in school, it was always the black girl that was angry.
Totally.
and that's what Kathleen's hitting on, is that, I just, there's data behind it, but I just wonder if it's garbage in, garbage out. It's the same stuff.
And yet it's more, when you look at the data that's in there, it's more gender oriented, right? So it's not, there isn't a color skew if you look at the data itself, but there is a gender skew. And then because there's a gender skew, there are the gender biases that come in if a woman does this,
Exactly.
right?
The bitch factor.
The bitch factor comes up, exactly. So those things change. And it's important for us to know that, right? If we know that the data is showing us that this is the way people are responding, if someone is doing this, and the gender skew is there, then I've got to be careful when I am coming in and being very assertive about something. That I do it in a way that doesn't then, if I want to continue engaging, right? These are all the things we have to be thinking about, right? If I want to be continuing to engage in this setting, I do know that there's a data set that supports, I need to figure out how to be as competitive, as assertive as possible about what's important to me in a way that people can hear it. So I can move more over here. So this side here is, uncooperative and unassertive, if you're down here, right? Uncooperative, unassertive. And then as I move this way, it's more, cooperative and assertive. So in collaboration, if you are being cooperative and seen to be listening, right? Listening is the key thing down here for the cooperative. If I'm seen to be listening and treating people fairly and respectfully, and I am being very assertive with what's important to me, people will continue to collaborate with me, right? But you have to combine those, right? You do have to combine. So I think, thank you for bringing up that, the social science bias, and then, go ahead.
Just
and
really
on top
quick,
of that-
yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think for a lot of these, like the Myers-Briggs and strengths, like all those, it's the conversation that it provokes more than the typology that you're trying to fall into
Yes.
that's important. So, yes, we could debate all, of course it's biased, it was made by, I assume, men, but. Yeah.
And Kilman.
Yep. But
Probably they're
the
white,
conversation
too.
about, exactly, it's the conversation about like who we are, I think is more important than
Yes.
the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good, thank you for both of those points. Becky?
I think this is interesting, and one of the things that makes me reflect on in relationship to our commission is I can think of, in my mind, 3 examples since I've been on the commission where I wish we had the tools as a commission to move to avoid. Because I think we would have made better decisions if we had the process tools to do that.
Okay.
Just so that we could reflect a little bit more on how to make maybe a wiser decision that created less fallout.
Right.
Maybe not perfect, but
Perfect.
sorry.
Right?
So I mean, I think that's interesting.
Yes.
Like I really, I so respect us as a commission, but sometimes I think we need to slow down just for a minute or.
If you can.
Or put it
right.
to the next meeting or
If you can.
plan that, but I don't know that I know like the tools personally of what would that look like?
Fantastic. Yeah.
I move to table this, or like what would a motion look like in that situation?
Great.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So if I add to that, and I'd use another term, because avoid seems too strong to me, but delay.
Delay.
There's times when we probably should have delayed the decision. Avoid means we're not gonna deal with it. Delay means we're gonna deal with it because we have to, but we're gonna postpone it because of X, whatever.
And I think times for me that I would say that is happening is if we feel like everyone on the commission is not fully clear on exactly what we're deciding to do in our motion. The second one would be, we don't seem to be really, we're struggling to figure out on the fly what we're supposed to do. How could we make a really good decision here? You know what I mean? Like, we're struggling to, I know we struggle and it's awkward sometimes because we're like, oh, how do you say that? What do we do? But I mean, I think there are some times where we truly need to think for a minute about how we could craft something, and just sitting up there at that moment in, especially a heated situation where you're supposed to figure something out and just feeling all that pressure.
Yeah. Well, you've just, harm might come if you make the decision right now.
Yeah.
These are exactly the things that we would put up no matter what, but for you all, this is perfect that you're having this conversation. You need more information to make a decision, or you need just time to process, right? I mean, people who test as avoiders, often they're making decisions, I'm not gonna engage in this right now because I need more time to process what it is that's going on. And other people who view that as, oh, they're just avoiding it, right? You have the opportunity to reframe that narrative as a group, to say, we need more time to process this, right? I feel like I have enough information now, but I haven't had enough time to process it. So I want to delay, postpone, or pause the decision, right? I mean, I think there are different ways that you can make a motion. That is a big bug.
There's quite a few.
Box elders.
There are different ways to make motions
Lots of wood.
that are absolutely, totally acceptable.
And I think
Staff might be frustrated, but then that's good information for staff to understand is, yes, we have done the work on this, and yes, we were hoping you were going to approve it, and we may need to find different ways to give you the information so that when you get to the public meeting, you're ready to make a decision now or at the next meeting.
I think that's a very important point, because I'm thinking of examples, and I'm sure they overlap, where the pressure was, yes, from the public to make a decision. There were times where it was like, we just listened to 5 hours of testimony and we're not gonna make a decision, and people were literally like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
But also feeling like staff are aligned with that understanding is really important, because I think there are times where we're like, why are we making this decision? But that ship has already sailed, right? Like this has come in front of us, and now we need the support of staff to be able to say, this may not be a productive, but having heard everything, and thank you for all of your comments, this may not be a decision we can make right now. Because I think I've felt those pressures from the public, yes, but from the staff is almost harder, because you know you are gonna sit down with them in a few hours and look them in the eye and be like, thank you for your time, we couldn't make a choice, you know?
And can I chime in just from,
Please.
like,
Yeah,
in case this is helpful, just to put out in this conversation, I sit through these meetings too, and I completely understand and appreciate the difficult position and decisions and all of that. And just to highlight the beauty of the tool of a break, because sometimes, like, you can, I mean, I think it's really up to Mary, but can take breaks often, and the point that I want to make is that often, like technically you could delay a decision until another meeting, but sometimes for legal reasons you really can't.
Right.
Sometimes there's
Right, that's what I was saying.
legal.
The timing part is really important.
Yeah, and so that break could be good for people to kind of collect their thoughts, or, you know, digest, whatever. And also to check in with Annika and I about, like, what are the legal parameters that we are under here in terms of our timing.
Right.
So
you move from avoiding and delaying to compromising because there's a time constraint.
Sometimes.
That requires that today is the day you have to make the decision. So you can't put it off.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and so asking that question is an important one.
Kudos to Chair Wall, because she's gotten better about giving us more breaks. I mean, what I used to do is just get up and leave because I needed a break. And, you know, like, so, but, you know, we talked about that. Like, can we have more breaks? Like, whether it's for the bathroom or headspace or whatever, because I'm one of those people that needs the headspace.
Needs time to process. Yeah.
And so I think we have gotten better about that, like meeting management and just structure, and like not having these 10-hour extravaganzas, like, where you're just fried and you can't make your decisions because, you know,
and there's
there's
so much data and evidence that, you know, making those decisions at the end of a day like that, nobody's brain is made for that. Nobody's. I mean, there are people who have to do it for short periods of time. Go back to Los Angeles, right? And you don't have to do that. I mean, and if there are big decisions to make, then figure out when is it that everybody's at their best? When is the team at its best in the day? And then put those agenda items at that time, when you got when you got most of the team paying attention. So finding some of those things out, finding out some things about how you process information. I've got one more. I can do a timing thing as well, but I've got one about that I'm just going to ask you all to add on, and I'm going to ask the commissioners to do this. How do you learn best? Do you learn best by seeing? Do you learn best by doing? Do you learn best by discussing, engaging with others about it? Or do you learn best by reading and reflecting on it? And I'm gonna ask you to, this is the chart, right? I'm gonna ask you to put a green mark where, what is your primary way that you learn best? And then what's your fallback, what's your secondary? And we're gonna fill this out from the commission standpoint, and that will help your staff figure out the best way to provide you information so you can get it in the way that is best for you, okay? And I can do a timing thing for when are you awake in meetings? When are you most awake in meetings? Put the most important decisions then, okay? All right, this here, I'm gonna just put it on the wall back there, but this shows you the ones, so these are the different quadrants that I just put up there, right? And this is where the team falls out. And not falls out, like pig out, that fall, that was from yesterday.
I was gonna say, it's fine or something.
Yes, right? Yes, they do. So in the compete zone, the highest you get for compete is an 8. which isn't super high in compete. In collaborate, you've got some 9s, you've got 3, and the difference in the color here, so black are the commissioners, blue are the leadership team, okay? And I've tried to do this one goes up, but these ones go down. It wasn't exactly perfect. As perfect as I thought it was gonna be. And by the time I put all the time into doing it, it's like, all right. I'm invested. We've got 1 commissioner who tests high in collaborate, 3 that are pretty high, 2 staff that are high. So you've got a lot of nice collaborative instincts here, yeah. And I don't think the only other group I can think of that had this high a score as compromisers was the public health leadership team for the state of Oregon with all the county folks after H1N1. Super high. You guys are super. We've got a 12. This is a 12 here. No, yes, yeah, it's a 12 in compromise here. So you got a 12 here. You've got the lowest you go is as high as you go in some other areas, I think. So lots of compromisers here, which is great for what you're doing. And there are other things that there are other ways you all might want to engage. So first instinct is going to be to go to compromise, right? Is try to find that fast place in the middle. You might want to then ask yourselves, do we want to do the fastest thing? Do we want to do that? Or do we want to take more time to collaborate? Or do we want to just say, we're not even going to engage? There's some very low folks down here. This is a void down here. Some folks that just not part of your personalities, right? If there's a problem, you're going to solve it, which is awesome and may not be necessary sometimes, right? It may be better choice to just say, I'm going to walk away right now for the reasons we were just talking about. Harm might come if you do it. You might need more information, you might not have enough information yet. You might need some time to process, either on your own or with some other people. Okay, so I just want to note that here for the avoid. And then in accommodate, it's kind of a nice little mix of, some 8s here, both commissioners and staff, and some more. And then some others who got super high on the accommodate. And you know who you are.
I was going to say, that's why I'm laughing.
Yeah, you know who you are.
I'm sure I'm the lowest.
Well, I promised everyone I would not put their names on it. I do have the map, so if everyone were to agree, yes, it would be useful to know who. But I kind of don't want to go there right now. Yeah. So I do have a map, and you all can tell me later if it's like, okay, now we know each other and trust each other enough to share that information, right? But for the folks here that are lower on accommodates, when these folks start telling you, no, I think we need to be spending more time building that relationship and we want to accommodate people, listen to them and just see what they tell you, right? Listen to them, watch them, because it's coming your way, big bug, because what we do know about collaboration is that when collaboration works, you can meet more people's needs because you've listened to them, right? You have a sense of what, more people feel like they won at the end of the day. We actually don't, there's some people call it win-win agreements, win-win solutions. We don't teach that in our negotiation and mediation classes. We call it lose not as much, lose not as much. Because people are gonna remember the stuff they didn't get. It's a rare day that everybody gets everything that everybody wants. Those are beautiful days. They do happen, but it's like 1 in 10, I would say. Having mediated now for 30 years, 1 in 10, where everybody feels like they got everything they wanted. So if we can get over here, lose not as much, and focus on what people gained. This is also, collaboration is also known as mutual gains bargaining, right? You're looking for mutual gains. The more mutual gains you can get, great. Great. And so, there it is. Okay? Questions, comments? Any more questions?
I have just one quick comment, and that is the kudos to the commissioners for this one, in my view. The request that has come even more often than give us more breaks has been, we need to have the connections between these things. we know that we want decisions that don't piss off the whole world at the end of the day and that sort of thing. But there are things that we don't have that we will get at least a start on today in terms of serial conversations and some of these other pieces. So knowing these connections and being able to talk about the process to go from, if we're having one of those days, I mean, the commissioners have, you know, the list that I have of what commissioners would like to think about, talk about, and come out of this with in terms of process, it's from this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, and they're, you know, put the controversial ones in the morning when our brains are still on, you know, simple things, but they, you know, and we've done a lot of that, but, you know, you don't just naturally think of it until you think of it in these terms,
Yeah,
so.
until you're overt about it, exactly.
Yeah, and
then you can
make
go
the
back to having it
connections.
not overt, right?
Yeah.
You can have it be a little bit more, yeah, making those connections, exactly, Mary. So I will let you, here's the thing that I have found when I do this in a workplace where we spend a lot of time trying to figure out, you know, what's going on. And I have people go off in the room, and I have the competitors and the collaborators and the compromisers and the avoiders and the accommodators. And someone will inevitably come over to me, and they'll see someone over in collaboration or accommodation, and they'll say, I know Joe. Joe is not a collaborator. Joe's a pain in my ass. And then I have this whole conversation. I was like, time out. Often don't notice how people handle conflict unless they're under conditions of stress.
Yeah.
And then they are their second one. So when I ask people to go to their favorite, where are they most comfortable? It's not what you see. If you start seeing someone acting out, they probably are feeling stressed. So that can be an indicator too, for the whole group. Mary all of a sudden is not, you know, what's up with Mary, right? That might be a time to say, let's take a little break and find out, Mary, what do you need for support? And it could be part of what's happening in the group, and it could be totally unrelated. And that's really important to remember as well. It might not be your fault. It might not be anybody's fault. It might be Mary almost got sideswiped, and someone then was following her the entire time to the meeting, flipping her off, giving her a bunch of grief for something they did, right? And she's worked up about it. It may be, and I want to acknowledge this today, that someone here knows people in Los Angeles and you're worried about them, okay? That is going to heighten it up, right? That just starts to heighten things up. So if you haven't heard the acronym HALTS, right? If you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or stressed, any one of those is a suggestion to halt communication and decision-making. Which is why, thinking about the day, when are people hangry? When are people tired? These are not the times to make big decisions, right? We know that, right? We know that's when good people make bad choices. That's when ethical, I thought that person was really ethical. Something else was going on, turned out. Okay, all right. Leslie, and then we'll move to the next thing before the break.
Oh, okay,
Or we'll
yes.
take the break first. You'll tell me.
No, I don't mind, like, saying which one I am, or if there's something that's printed, I don't care. But I think, to touch on Kathy Ann's point, I mean, what is important is the result and the test, not like whatever biases are cooked in.
Exactly.
And I think that is important, and also, like, again, that self-awareness. Like, for example, I know that I'm not accommodating, full stop. I know that. Like, I'm that lowest score, full stop. But I also say, I'm not?
You're not.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm low, for sure. I definitely know that I'm low. I'm not high. Other things are high, like avoid. But that's because I like time to process. But the thing that is important, like when I saw, like I made a little bar chart of mine, which I know that you saw. But what's important is something that at least I'm self-aware. Like I always say, be humble, stay curious. Like I'm saying that to myself.
Nice.
And I'm saying it out loud because I know that that's not my default.
Right.
Like I need to listen to other people, places, voices, perspectives. I can't just go charging down as the naval veteran, the ER doctor, people that have run incident command. You don't have time for this bullshit. A, B, C, go. That's my default. That's not always how it should go. And so sometimes you.
Especially in a setting like this. Right?
Exactly.
Especially, I mean, this is a great opportunity for you, Leslie, because this commission is one of the ones that is under fire regularly.
Right.
So having you fire first might not be the
Exactly.
best choice for the
And that's why
rest of everyone
sometimes
else.
I sit quietly. That's why sometimes I avoid. Because sometimes those parts of my personality where I'm popping off, that's not the answer.
Yeah.
That's not gonna get us there.
Yeah.
And I know that.
And it may be that as you develop more as a team, that there may be times when people can do things that will even indicate to you, you're popping.
Yeah, exactly.
You might not
Like,
even know you're popping.
I'm looking at the notes. I see all the little, like, see the artwork and the notes all happening. There's methods to all that. Trust me, I do get it. I do.
I have just a quick follow-up
Please.
on that, because I think we have somebody in the room, which would be Commissioner Labhart, did spend a lot of his time in that ABC Go
Yeah. Absolutely.
thing,
Yes, it is.
although he's very measured and
He's
on our
learned.
commission.
I was gonna say, you learn.
And so that's someone which should be able to really relate to your style, because
That's what we're told buds.
he was in the ER, was the ER of fire, so that might be a good, you guys could have good conversations.
And we do.
about
No, I
that.
agree.
Usually involves a beer though.
Exactly. And we also know that one of us could wear it at the end, because that's how it rolls. I mean, like, I do understand that, and I do seek examples. And no, I do. I think it's important that I know that, because what happens is so many people don't know. And also you have to know your room and know your setting. Like, there's certain times to flip that way, and there's certain times not. And so, I mean, you know, you can be so right and so wrong at the same time. That's something that I say all the time. So I think it is important. And I think that for me, that's why sometimes I stop. It's like, okay, I can make this worse.
Well, that's another.
And I used to not care, frankly. I used to not care. I used to just burn the bridge and just move on. And again, when you're coming from the space that I come from, that's the last thing you care about. It's like, you know what, lives are at stake. I don't have time for that. You know, so I mean, again, like, it's about adapting, and it's about being humble and staying curious. It is absolutely that.
All right, and so with that, what I'm gonna suggest that we take a break. When we come back, we'll move into the next phase of this, of the best team. But you guys have a 10:45 hard, is that a hard time?
What are we doing?
Cause I mean, I can either start it, if you have 5 minutes in you before break, we can do it, or take your break now. You tell me. Break? Break.
I'm one of the fidgeters.
Oh, yay. It could be the other side. So for purposes of the audience online, we are taking a 15-minute break. We'll be back in.
I was like, oh, I should make Mary another one.
Exactly.
It doesn't snap like my
It doesn't.
Yeah, I have nothing to.
The thing is, you know, when you said whip, I was
I
thinking,
don't really have a clink.
no, not with this crowd, not a whip. Like, you know, like me and Becky get a hold of that freaking whip, oh.
It's a nice little.
Oh, yeah, and I've had like times where people were like, did she really have to do the whip? It triggered me. And I was like, oh, boy. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Hello.
We're getting waved away.
This is my whip,
I-
but it's not.
We could throw Play-Doh.
Sarah told me she would be
You can take it to your little ones, cause you know, they make it so you can eat it.
live online.
It's not toxic, cause
Really?
these kids eat it.
It does look tasty.
Yeah,
But I can see you've done something. That's not just a standalone thing.
Are you talking about Otter and Ink over here?
About what?
Otter and Ink, that's her, or her, what is
Sculpting
it?
some flowers here to smash. It's the best part of Play-Doh.
Who gets to smash them? Do we get?
There's 3 of them, so anyone can take.
And she'll make more.
Ready? Are you ready? So can I have another 10 minutes with them? And then pass it to you and Erin? Yeah, okay. What I would like to do, and this will be for everybody, so I want to invite Annika and Erin to participate in this as well. And what I want to do is start by asking, so this is phase 1 of this, the best team exercise. And what I want to ask you all to do is to get comfortable in your chair. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, that's okay. I want you just to find a place in the room where you can keep bringing your attention back to that place. Okay. So, everybody can just get comfy. Okay, Michelle's coming on in to get comfy. Good, excellent. All right, so as you're sitting, maybe put both your feet flat on the ground for this, because I'm going to ask you to just let's start by wiggling your toes while they're on the ground. Bob says, really? Yeah, really. Wiggle your toes. And now what I want you to do is I want you to start focusing on your breath. And so I want you just to take some deep breaths in. I'm going to ask you to do the one that the Navy SEALs does, which is a count of 4, 2, and 4. So in by 4, hold for 2, out by 4, hold for 2. Might take you a couple times to get that rhythm. As you're breathing, I want you to start to focus on the breath that's coming in and feeling it fall all the way down to the bottom of your lungs. Letting your diaphragm stretch. And as you exhale, just feel the air coming out of your nose. And just notice what you're noticing as you're doing this. What are you noticing in your body? What are you hearing or not hearing? Are you warm? Are you cold? Just notice. No judgment about it. Just notice what you're noticing. See if there's any place in your body that's tense. And again, just notice. Just pay attention to that for a moment. And now I want you to think about the best team that you have ever been on. As you're in this place where you're relaxed and you're noticing, think about the best team. I want you to think about the people who are on that. It can be a work team, a play team, a whatever team. It doesn't need to be athletic, just any kind of team. And I want you to take a minute and I want you to just, in your mind's eye, look at the people who are on that team with you. Imagine that they're here in this room. what about this team was so amazing? Why do you see this best team as your best team? Who led and how? Who supported and how? How did your teammates support you? And then alternatively, how did you support them? Where did you do the work? What time of day did you do the work? What happened between the times that the team was meeting? How did you stay connected? And as a last step here, what I would like to ask you to do is just look at those folks and thank them for the lessons they taught you. Thank them for being such a great team. They don't happen all the time. Thank them for the moment of learning. Now I want to ask you to go back to that 4-2-4 breathing. Do that 3 times and then open your eyes. Now, as you're opening your eyes, I'd like to ask you just to write down 3 to 5 attributes from that team. What are 3 to 5 different attributes that stand out for you? I always love being on this end of this exercise because I love watching people kind of smiling at different times and eyebrows moving around. It's super engaging. Okay. I will do the next part on this after we're done. But I thought starting with this might be nice, leading into the conversation you're going to have next. I will tell you that when the next phase is, I'm going to go around the table one by one and ask you to share one of the attributes. I'm going to list them. By the end of the day, we will have from that list, you're going to be thinking about those combined. So what are the individuals and then what are the combined attributes that you want for this team to be as successful as possible? It really is about trying to build a success based on what are the things that were important to you in the work you've done before. So with that, I'm going to move out of the way. I'm not allowed to say another word. The good news is I have said as much today, I think, as I'm going to be. This is the time I talk the most. The rest of the time is you all talking to each other. So, well, not the rest. First is Annika and Aaron talking to you. Okay?
I have to do the boring stuff first and read the into the record about public session, so, and thank you for giving it to me. We will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Members of the press in attendance may not report on anything heard. Annika and Aaron.
I look to our incredible specialists over there as to whether we have exited and entered.
Sorry, Wes.
Are we finished streaming now?
We can be.
Yes. And then we enter into the executive session room. Just let us know when that happens.